everybody, and welcome. We are back. It's been a little bit, but we are back with college rugby wrap-up. And just in time, fellas, we are back to talk some really, really crazy college rugby action going on. Zach Lanning, I'm here with Josh Rescio and Colby Marshall. We got the entire crew together. We missed you guys, and Colby, you and I have been together for a bit, but Josh, welcome back. How's it going?
It's nice to be back. I mean, I missed it. I really did.
Welcome back, everyone. The weather is gorgeous outside. It's summer in November.
It is pretty crazy. I'm up in Maine and it was like 75 degrees, just outside, living my best life in November. It's not supposed to be that way, but we'll take it as long as we can. And we will talk about it. I think we had some good weather all over the place, including some of these games we're going to talk about. We'll recap the battle for the mitten a little bit later on as well. Josh, that you and I were involved in, that was in some pretty great rugby weather as well. But first, we got some non-college stuff I think we could talk about a little bit besides the weather. We'll get into some of the national team stuff. I want to hear your guys' thoughts on this. We got a jam-packed show. We got playoffs in college and stuff too, so we'll touch on this briefly. But I do want to start. We'll start with the World Cup and the Women's World Cup, guys, and just kind of get your final thoughts on how the women performed, you think, in this tournament, making the quarterfinals, and obviously losing to Canada in the quarterfinals, 32-11. They lost to Canada twice to end the tournament, but making it, out of pool play is still an accomplishment. Josh, we'll start with you. What are your thoughts on that World Cup performance by the U.S. women?
I love the group. I've loved watching the content throughout the entire World Cup. It's really disappointing that we would lose to Canada, especially being that, considering them a rival and being right at our doorstep here at the United States. But this group has a lot of potential, and I look forward to watching them in the future. So I'll take getting out of pool play as a win for me.
Colby, what about you?
Yeah, it kind of stings losing to Canada, right? Twice in the same tournament. We obviously matched up with them in the group stage. And you figure going into that second matchup, it's like, okay, this is a team that we've seen before. They got the better of us, beating us by 2 tries or 3 tries. But, you kind of had some confidence, I think, if you're the U.S. going into that second game, just having seen that team once before. But just couldn't get it done. Game was actually pretty close in the second half. They had them 12-8, almost, at the halftime break, but Canada was able to get another 5 right before the break. That was huge. So I think, overall, like you guys are saying, it's a good showing for the U.S., but definitely disappointing to lose to a rival at that stage in the tournament.
Yeah, I will say those were probably the 2 best games that the U.S. played in those 2 games against Canada, the whole World Cup. I think they should have won that first matchup against Italy, but they were a little discombobulated. I'll say I think they were still getting their stuff together, but they really turned it around. I think they played very physical against Canada. I think they had the positions sorted out with Alev Kelter, at inside or outside center instead of a fullback spot, allowing Tess Fury to kind of join the lineup and inject some pace into that. But Canada's just good, guys. I mean, they were I was blown away watching those games, just how physically imposing Canada's players are, just how big they are, and how much faster they were. I think a lot of different spots on the field, and they are a really, really good team. I think they should definitely be counted in the top 5, in the world at this point for sure. So losing to them, we did make it close. Was pretty good. I think that I'm encouraged by that performance. We didn't have all of our best athletes available either for the 15s World Cup because the 7s World Cup was so close to this. So I think a lot of room to grow for the U.S. Canada will be a tough kind of obstacle to overcome though, because they were just they were amazing. I was blown away watching them. But yeah, any other thoughts on the World Cup overall, guys? I mean, we got the final coming up. It's going to be New Zealand v. England, which definitely the 2 best teams in the world right now, and that should be a great game.
Yeah, I mean, were you guys surprised by France blowing out Italy in the knockout rounds? It was 39-3. I mean, I felt like Italy was a team that was supposed to be one of the best teams in the world.
I think Italy are good, but I think France is definitely elite. I think France is right below England, New Zealand when it comes to top teams, and I think Italy is still a little ways away from that.
Gotcha.
But I mean, they're good. Yeah, don't get me wrong. I think that Italian side is good, but I think France is like an elite squad, even with some of the injuries they faced.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So the separation from like the fourth best team in the world from the fifth is like pretty large, even though Italy are considered a top 5 team in the world. The separation there is pretty big, you would say.
Yeah, because I mean Italy lost to Canada as well, and so I think I think there's a bit of a separation there. I would say Canada vaults ahead of Italy in those rankings at this point as well because they're just so dominant.
Yeah.
But you can see the difference in those teams that have professionalized, their setup basically, which is what the U.S. was saying they definitely have to do after this. But
I mean, I guess it's going to be great if the host country can win. That's and probably most. I don't know. What is your prediction, Zach? Where are you going to put this at?
It's a really tough call. I think England is definitely like the top team in the world. I don't know if there have been a few injuries on that side. They've still looked pretty good. And New Zealand can make anything happen. I mean, they're a really dynamic side. They have the home field advantage. They're playing at home. They historically play really well in the World Cup. But I think England will. I think the Red Roses are going to continue their historic winning streak. I think they're going to be the winners in this one. I think it'll be very close. I think 1-score game, but I think England.
Well, let's not forget these two teams matched up in the group stages of the competition, if I'm not mistaken, with England coming away with the small victory, 13-7. So kind of like what we saw with USA and Canada. We'll see if England can get the double, which is not easy to do, I'll still say, in a competition like this. I'm picking New Zealand.
All right. Josh, how about you?
I'm gonna go New Zealand as well. Take the home crowd.
Wow, so it's just me standing alone on the side of the Red Roses. I'm very content being on that on the side of England in this. They are very good at rugby. So we'll see though. It's gonna be a great game. I think everybody should tune in. That's going to be a really great culmination to what was a really, really great World Cup. So we can pivot now to the Men's World Cup qualification. The team's getting ready. We're trying to fill that final spot, and the U.S. is in a battle for their lives to be a part of that World Cup, guys. But a convincing first round of that repechage tournament. They beat Kenya. It's hard not to say repechage like you're Sean Connery. Do you guys feel that at all? Like, does it just naturally that like kind of Scottish accent come out?
I don't know what that is.
No, yes.
It's just a fun word.
Like you're who? I'm not familiar with the person you reference.
You know Sean Connery?
Wow.
James Bond,
right.
like the best James Bond of all time. The Rock, he was in The Rock.
The old James Bond. The old James Bond. Like,
well, I don't know where he ranks in like the oldest
one. Everyone
but
knows.
Multiple.
Wow. Colby,
who's the James Bond that in which movie like the 2000s?
Pierce Brosnan, probably you're talking about.
Okay, so not Sean Connery. So yeah, that guy's old. I don't know him.
Well, he has, I believe, passed on, so he's no longer with us. He was quite old.
God rest his soul.
Yes, but he was very, like, probably many people would say the best James Bond to ever play that role. So
I'm sure
you got some homework this weekend, Colby. On top of the rugby, you got to watch every Sean Connery James Bond that exists.
I'm sure he was phenomenal. God rest his soul. Didn't mean any disrespect. Didn't know who the man was.
Well, he says he probably would have said repechage like I'm saying it. But anyway, we'll get back to the rugby in this. The U.S. did end up beating Kenya in that first round, 68-14. So one step closer, guys, to qualification. You guys got any thoughts on that? That first score line, pretty convincing win for the U.S., Josh.
Did you see Christian Dryer's 50-22?
I did not see that exact kick, but I did see that he had some pretty nice ones in there.
Beautiful. I mean, I don't know. It was a very convincing game for how like massive Kenya is, for one. Like you would look at the game at first, you're like, this doesn't look like it's gonna go well. But the US team having to travel all the way to Dubai, I think they made a really good statement win. I would not overlook Hong Kong. I think, Hong Kong could definitely come out a lot stronger when they play the US than they did against Portugal. So it's not going to be an easy road. And the fact that only one team's going to get a qualification, it just makes every game so exciting. But this U.S. team, I think they definitely have the heart to do it, and they definitely have the skill to get out of there with a solid win.
Especially, guys, when you have someone like the Butcher leading the front lines. Dylan Fawcett with a hat trick, my man. Rugby United New York legend. Balled out of his mind. Led the team with 3 tries, tied with Christian Dyer, I believe.
Yep.
As the U.S. scored 10 tries. Really impressive performance. Class as always was Dylan the Butcher in the post-game interview. So I'm not surprised. You know, they're going to be a tough out in the Rugby World Cup if they decide to play in it, that is. This is the tournament, so I guess they have decided they are playing.
Yes, they are competing for that final spot, and I was a little I will say though, Colby, like I know like on that point, the roster that they put out for this game against Kenya was not necessarily like the roster that I thought would be the top choice. You know, I thought it was a little bit of a risk to throw a couple less seasoned guys or like not you guys hadn't played together so much in that first lineup against Kenya. But it paid off for Gary Gold. I mean, they didn't start AJ McGinty in this. You didn't have Nick Savetta playing second row, who's out due to injury. So I think you're missing a couple of guys that like were like that you'd think of as the top lineup in this. They didn't have a lot of options at 8 either. They had Cam Dolan stepping in at lock, but they came out and they played really well. And Josh, like you said, they opened up a couple different aspects of offense by kicking these 50-22s that were great. That the maul off the line out works beautifully for them. So I think, convincing win, maybe not even the best team that they have, but it shows what playing a couple games, ahead of time can do for your preparation. When you get these teams together, you get these guys out with a few matches of lead up time before the actual match. It pays off on the field. So big first win, but I don't think we're out of the woods just yet, guys, at all. I'm a little nervous. I will say I'm still not like completely confident in this team going forward.
And one thing to add, though, the U.S. team should not be in this tournament.
No,
let's make that clear, right? They shouldn't be here. They shouldn't be playing in this tournament, fighting for the last qualification spot. They should already be qualified. So I do take a look at the unusual lineup as a good chance, and you're seeing this in the sevens front as well. Like if it's time to pass the torch to some of the young guns that we have that are getting through college and playing in the MLR, let's do it, because it's really unacceptable that we should be playing in this final qualification tournament. We should be qualifying for the World Cup every time.
Yeah, to your points, guys, we have 5 starters in that game against Kenya make their debut for the national team, including at the scrum half position, which is really important. Brian Reese got the nod out of Rugby ATL. So I agree. I like that they went with an unconventional roster, a young team. It's exciting as a USA Rugby fan, I think, and something to build on. Glad that these guys got some first team reps. Only forward from here. Only up
I like
here.
it. I like the decision, Colby. I just think when I looked at it at first, like I was in the car back from the battle for the mitten, and I was looking at it, Josh, for leaving Michigan, and I was like, this is somebody, and Gary Gold, who's coaching that team, and is in some ways coaching, I think, for his job, like, because if they don't qualify for this World Cup, he's not coaching the team for the next World Cup. That's for sure. So like the stones to say, let's start 5 brand new guys, or some unknowns here in our single elimination tournament to get into the World Cup. I mean, that's a serious decision. And so you're right. Maybe it is like, hey, these guys were not getting it done. Our mainstays over the last few years are not getting it done. Let's see what the younger guys have. But I guess that his back was against the wall. He kind of had to do it now. I would say maybe there's a better time to do it than single elimination do or die matches, but I guess he had to, and it paid off. So does he get a kudos from us guys? A college rugby wrap up kudos to Gary Gold. We'll wait till he wins the whole thing, maybe.
Yeah, he's got to win this thing first.
He ain't getting no kudos for qualification wins.
You got to earn those kudos. You can't just get it for beating Kenya in the first round. So
no kudos for Kenya.
no kudos for Kenya.
Hashtag.
Very well said, both of you. Nothing more for me to add on that. We can now finally move to college rugby, the name of the show, the namesake. Josh, we can start with you. I think you have some news on some playoffs here coming in the fall for the CRAA.
I do. The CRA Fall Classic seems to be coming back, guys. I mean, it was successful last year. We had some cool matchups we don't get to see usually, like Ohio State versus Air Force. Sounds like it's coming back. We don't have the details yet, but it seems like this bowl style games are here to stay. And the CRA understands that a lot of teams are playing in the fall. So December 3rd and 4th in North Carolina. Hopefully we'll be able to help cover it as best we can. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I think that should be great. That was great last year. And the CRA can't necessarily wholly abandon fall 15. So I'm glad they have some sort of foothold here. And you're right. It does allow for some really interesting clashes that we don't get to see that often. But outside of that, guys, outside of that news, we had some really, really interesting score lines to talk about. That came out of last weekend. We missed a few weeks here. So, forgive us. We're going to pass over some games, but I think this is still a really good time to be back and doing a show, because we had probably this may be, I don't know if you guys would have expected this at all if we had a show and picked this game, but Navy upsetting the number one team in the country, Army, this weekend, 27-14, to continue their perfect season. They're 10-0 now in Rugby East. I mean, how huge is this for Navy? Colby, we can start with you. I mean, how important a win is this for the Midshipmen here in their first year as a varsity program?
Well, I think it's their biggest win of the season thus far. With that being said, I don't believe that anybody within the Navy camp is too surprised by the win over Army, because going into the game, to the past few weeks, we've been saying that Navy is arguably the best team in the country, right? Like, arguably they could be slotted up above Army the past couple of weeks before this matchup. So I don't think they're surprised that they got this result. Now the world is on notice. Now everybody's paying attention. Now, they've put everybody on blast. They put themselves on high alert in the college rugby ranks. So it's exciting times for Navy. Great win for them. Biggest one of the year.
Yeah, I guess I wasn't surprised necessarily that they could have won, but they did win by, double digits. I think that's surprising to me, Josh. I mean, what are your thoughts on the victory here for Navy?
I don't think the score definitely told the level of competition in the game. In my opinion, these are the two best teams playing in the fall right now. I think they would match up against anyone, and it's tough. I mean, they came into the game undefeated. They came into the game kind of dominating the other competition as well. You can make the case that Navy is the Army of last year, but up until this point, Army was the number one team in the country. They had to have a team that was going to come in and dethrone them, and Navy was the one that did it. Huge win, probably the biggest win of the year from any team so far. And it's going to be even more important now that they carry this momentum, because they have a really, really tough game this weekend against St. Bonaventure, who can still, for some reason, finish on top of the Rugby East. So you have these two dominating teams, but by Navy winning, St. Bonaventure can still, get the top spot. So huge win this weekend, but I'm sure that they are really loving the win over Army.
Yeah, I think we'll break down the playoff ramifications of these wins this week, because that is a huge game coming up on the weekend between these two teams that will kind of determine the playoff seeding for Rugby East going forward. So they have one more week in their regular season. It is a little confusing to me also, like, that St. Bonaventure is NCR, but Army and Navy are not NCR in a way, right? I don't think they're not competing in that same playoff. Am I right to say that?
It is weird. It is definitely weird. It's definitely strange. Zach, we talked before the Battle for the Mitten with, we had mentioned to Paul Keeler, right? How are we gonna figure out all this confusion all the time with NCR versus CRAA? And to be honest, no one has the answer for it. So we're just gonna have to deal with it until then.
Yeah, we will. We'll keep you informed as well. And then if you're looking for something, ahead of our episode next week on the Golf Rugby Report, there's a great breakdown of all the possible scenarios in Rugby East. Because of that, because of how it's structured and the wins and how the season has shaken out. So, but interesting, kind of at the top of that division, Queen's still in it. They have a shot still. Yeah, St. Bonaventure. That's probably the top 4 teams: Navy, Army, St. Bonaventure, and Queens. With Notre Dame College and Penn State kind of duking it out there at the end. But we will get onto that. But guys, another kind of result that could also be, Josh, you said this was the win of the year. How about Davenport men beating Life 23-10? Is that not the win of the year for a program? Anybody kind of beating one of those top tier programs? That's not the win of the year for a team.
Can you imagine being Davenport losing to Life? Like, what is it? Was it 20 times?
30,
times.
I believe.
Or however, they've never beaten Life. Never. Competing in the Mid-South, which is unanimously the hardest conference in the United States. It's huge, but man, it's about damn time. Davenport's a varsity sport. Dominating the Midwest can get recruits from anywhere, really. I'm impressed by it. It is going to be huge for them to carry it on through there, but it also maybe speaks a little bit to what is Life going to look like this year. So not as impressive as Navy beating Army, in my opinion, but still a very impressive win.
Not as impressive as Navy beating Army, really?
I
would breaking a 20-year curse.
I get it, they're breaking a 20-year curse, but Davenport's a good team, right? And they destroy everyone out of the Mid-South, right? And they can never get those wins when it comes to the Mid-South competition. So if I was them, I would be pissed going into every game. I would be, Life's going to get Davenport's best game every time. Lindenwood's going to get Davenport's best game every time. It was only a matter of time before they finally got a win, So yes, I put it as less impressive.
Were you more surprised that Davenport won than Navy winning?
Hard to say. I think Navy, that was a really tough, when you look back to last year when they played before USA and Maury All Blacks, right, played in at the Commander Stadium. I think Navy walked out of that loss feeling like they really let that one go, and that they could have been the team to beat them last year. So same kind of motivation as you see with Davenport with Life. I think Navy came into this game knowing that they were better than Army. And I can see Davenport this year finally having that same level of confidence, knowing that they could be better than Life, and just letting things come to play. So they're both great wins, but I think they're both, motivation wins, and both two teams that came in with more heart than the other team just because of the situation and the circumstances.
Davenport has been hot this fall. I mean, they beat both of the top contending teams in the Big Ten, Josh. I mean, they beat Ohio State and Indiana. They've looked really good. So, yeah, I think you're right. It's just a matter of time until they could put enough together in a game against one of these top tier programs as well. But I don't know. I like to see if they can keep it going into the spring. I mean, I don't know if Life's necessarily at their peak in the fall 15. So, but we'll see. It could be a sign of things to come for Davenport going forward, and maybe a little bit of a struggle for Life. But I thought they looked good in a couple other games this fall as well. So we'll see if they maybe, they use this obviously as a learning experience, and they come out and play their best 15s in the spring. So, but I was shocked. I mean, Colby asked me that same question. I would probably say I gave Navy more of a chance to beat Army than I would have given Davenport to beat Life. So probably more shocked at the Davenport result. But see both sides of it. So. Colby, any thoughts on that game, the Davenport Life game?
Just awesome. It's the kind of stuff that college rugby needs. Storylines. A team like Davenport breaking a 20-year curse. It's just awesome to see.
Yeah, definitely more parity is necessary for college rugby. So yeah, any teams that can beat the big guys, that's good for us. So before we get into some of the playoff action, men's and women's playoff action, I do want to talk about what a wonderful time we had at the Battle for the Mitten tournament, Michigan State game that Josh has a big hand in putting together every year and started, back in the day a few years ago. So I hope everybody tuned into that with the Next Level Rugby production. Matt McCarthy and myself were on the call of that game. Josh was running around putting out every tiny fire or big fire that took place in the course of the weekend. So Josh, I'll cede the floor to you if you wanted to kind of chat about how the event went and, a little bit of the history of it. And we can chat about, the Battle for the Mitten as an overall experience.
Well, I mean, it went great. It was finally nice to have, you mentioned about good weather games. To finally have a good weather game for this game, my favorite part about this event is that it highlights how much communities are willing to pitch in to help grow the sport of rugby, right? It's a professional baseball stadium. It's all community driven. They understand that students are organizing the event. We need more of it in the sense of the country. We need more, community involvement to keep growing the sport. And it's so exciting to go back and help plan it every year because of that community involvement. Having people like yourself and Matt come out and help. It's so important for the game, and it makes such an impact on the players that play in it. Michigan State and Michigan were not the best teams in the Big Ten. It was not like some championship level game, but you see the stories that come out of it, and you see the players and their experience that comes out of it. That carries down, and that helps the game as a whole when it starts. When you start promoting, why should you come play college rugby? Why should you give this game a chance? Michigan State has a lot of international talent that comes in, every year and starts to play with the team. They go back to their home countries and they talk about it as well. So I think it was a great event. I think there's a lot to learn from it. I hope the Big Ten can continue doing more of them in the future. So I had a great time, and I was really appreciative of your guys' help.
No, it was wonderful. Yeah, like you said, the stadium, Lansing Lugnuts, Lansing, Michigan, hosted. It's a beautiful venue, great crowd. Everything you want in a game like that, and it was probably the chippiest rugby game I've ever watched in my life. But Michigan State did ultimately triumph 33-17 after a just dominant second half scrummaging, where they put 3 tries over in quick succession with just basically driving 10 meters in the scrum, and Michigan kind of not having any sort of resistance or any way to stop them. But it was a back and forth game, and there was a lot of animosity between the two teams. I will say that much, which carried over, I guess, into the football side of things as well later on that weekend, if anybody heard those stories. But I think it was a wonderful time. And Colby, you were missed there too, man. We would love to have you out there, and hopefully we can get you next time around.
Yeah, I was a little jealous when I saw you guys take that selfie. I was like, oh man, they're taking pictures.
Got to document
without me.
We should have photoshopped you in.
There's still time. We'll try and work Colby into it. We had our nice New Orleans selfie from last year's playoff tournament that we went to. So this is we got selfie tradition at these tournaments going forward.
No, it looked like you guys did a great job with the coverage, as you always do. So not surprised. Not surprised.
Thank you. If any other historic rivalry schools want to build something around it, we're all available to help out. Josh is always free. He's got nothing else going on. So
nothing else. It's a template these days. Give me 2 schools, give me a venue, I'm ready. We got this.
Yeah, it's like he's got it. You got a template down, now you're set. You got it all. You know what to do. You mentioned though, we could move on a little quickly here that Michigan State, not necessarily the top teams in the Big Ten. Those teams were, I guess, established that weekend as well, or this past weekend, excuse me, when the Big Ten playoffs started. Pretty much chalk, guys, from what we had predicted all year. Indiana beating Notre Dame 22-8 in one semifinal, and Ohio State beating Illinois 64-18. They will be matched up this weekend in the Big Ten final. Guys, love to get your thoughts on this playoffs and your predictions. Josh, we can start with you, our Big Ten guy.
Yeah, I mean, I think no surprise it's a repeat here. Ohio State versus Indiana for the Big Ten championship. Ohio State, a big win over Illinois, but Ohio State is looking a lot really broken at this point. They're dealing with a ton of injuries on their side. It's a testament to how good of a team they are that they're still in the final here. But I think this is Indiana's championship to lose. They lost a close one to Ohio State the last time around when these two teams met. But it's the 2 best teams in the Big Ten, and I think it's still going to be a great game. I'm putting a little bit of the edge to Indiana to walk out of here with the win.
Were you shocked that Indiana was not able to beat Notre Dame by more? I mean, 22-8 is nothing to sneeze at, but Ohio State put up 64 in Illinois in their somewhat broken state, as you would say. Are you shocked at that scoreline and against Notre Dame by Indiana?
Hard to say. I think Indiana, Notre Dame, and Ohio State we talked about this in regards to, women's rugby. Those top 3 teams are definitely in a little bit of a bracket of their own. Illinois is probably a lot farther down as the 4th team. You could have probably shuffled a couple other teams into that spot there. So no, I think Notre Dame, they stick in the Big Ten. I think they have a really good chance to, keep competing at a higher level. They had a tough grueling schedule this year. Yeah, no, I'm not surprised by the outcomes.
Colby, any thoughts on Big Ten playoffs?
I like Indiana to win this championship. I like Indiana. I think Josh is right in regards to Ohio State, and they're dealing with a lot of injuries, not playing the best rugby right now. They tied to Kentucky, I believe, in a recent game. And I think Indiana's got the juice. I like Peyton Wall out on that wing for them. He was a player of the week in college rugby a few weeks ago. I think they got the juice. Go Hoosiers. And they gave me a nice shirt at May Madness. I'll never forget. So
it always comes back to the swag for Colby, whenever he makes his picks. But no, I'm with you guys. I think Indiana wins this one. I think Ohio State only has that 1 year on top there. And I hope they enjoyed it last year. But yeah, I'm happy to see Notre Dame in the Big Ten as well. I think they're a great addition. It'll force those other teams like Michigan State or Michigan to step their game up if they want to start, being included in these playoffs here going forward. So another good team to beat. But that is, we're kind of kicking off our playoff action here now. And Colby, we can go to you to kind of recap here. We had the Liberty Conference playoffs finish up this past weekend with, I don't know, were you surprised by Brown kind of retaining the Liberty Conference title here, Colby?
Not at all. I won't lie to you. Brown has been the best team in the Liberty Conference for a while now, once we got underway. And, they beat AIC comfortably 33-14 in the final. As much as I'd like to see my Gales in that championship, Brown are very well deserving for lifting that trophy. And, Fairfield's a good side that took 3rd, beating Dartmouth by a large sum, 51-29. So definitely hats off to Brown. They had another great year, great season. Definitely deserved the title.
I will say that was probably the most shocking result to me. Not so much Brown over AIC 33-14, but the Fairfield just blew Dartmouth away in the 3rd place game, 51-29. What a season for Fairfield. They had high expectations opening up with that historic win over Iona. But they had struggled a little bit later in the year, but to come back and take 3rd place that emphatically, I mean, I was very impressed by that win by the Stags. So that, I think that deserves a kudos to Fairfield for a great season in Liberty Conference here, and hopefully many more good things to come from that side.
Definitely. And yeah, I got to catch up with Fairfield's head coach earlier this year, Austin Ryan, and what a great job he's done with those guys. What an effort they put in at Mozilla Field, obviously. And then they followed that up with another, just finished the season really strong and had another great win right after to show that it wasn't a fluke. So, I mean, I like them a lot. I think they're going to be here to stay. They got some young guys that are going to stick around. So I'm looking forward to following them next year. And I think they definitely wanted that 3rd place match more than Dartmouth. So, kudos to them for sure.
Yeah, they fell to AIC. Fairfield did in the semis, 35-26. Dartmouth lost to Brown, 45-13. Josh, any thoughts on Liberty Conference here wrapping up?
I was sad to see Iona, take 5th after as much coverage we give them in the year. But
I just had to say I was shocked that I was giving Colby a lot of credit for not even bringing it up. But they won a good game against Nazareth. I didn't expect them to beat Nazareth. I think Nazareth is a very good team. So I would say congrats to Iona. 5th place is probably a decent finish for the year they've had.
I would say so. It's disappointing because we don't want to finish after winning it last year. Finishing 5th is a bit of a letdown, but it is I guess a nice win. You could call it a nice win.
That's our trademark segment, sponsored by Iona. So I have to mention them at least once in every single episode.
We almost made it through. I mean, if they won the game. If they had won, we wouldn't have brought
it up. You just set it up.
You really did. I had to. I mean, it's on the sponsorship card. We have a contract obligation to bring them up in every episode.
But it wasn't Colby.
Meanwhile, we're getting heat from from freaking Twitter people, Twitter trolls. That's what I'm trying to say, for talking about Iona too much. But okay, fine. I'll talk about them again. Go Gales.
Now you get a whole off season. Now we won't talk about them at all until the spring. So
I'm gonna make a whole podcast around the Iona Gales for the off season. That
would be pretty good. I'd be into that. But we sadly have to move on from Iona and the Liberty Conference as well. This is the College Rugby Wrap-Up Bowl that I'm sad we didn't get to preview. But this game, Wheeling taking on Adrian for the kind of one of the last few spots in the NCR playoffs. And Wheeling coming out on top, 31-22 over Adrian, two teams that we both love, guys. Give me your thoughts on that game and now Wheeling, what you think they might be able to do going forward in the NCR playoffs. Colby, we can start with you on that one.
Yeah, Wheeling's a team we sort of have this love affair with after watching them in May Madness.
They're so fun. They're so great.
They're a fun team, very athletic. Got a lot of playmakers out there. Ayub Jolly with the big game, 18 points to his name. Had a few conversions. I like them a lot. And, that was a good game. It seemed like I didn't get to watch it, but from the score line, two teams that had relatively good season, it seemed like it was a pretty good game. And we want more Wheeling. What can I say? More Wheeling.
Yeah, pumped that Wheeling's going forward. Josh, probably happy for you to see the team that pounded Michigan State into the dust earlier, Adrian, kind of have a not so glorious exit here from the playoffs.
Not so glorious exit, but I will also ride the Wheeling train. I think there's a lot of momentum to carry from a win like this. Speaking to Adrian again, still their second year of existence here. So the fact that they're competing at this level already is impressive. Great to come from them. But I'm a Wheeling fan right now, and I feel like they can really make an impact come the NCR playoffs, depending on who they have to match up with first.
NIRA postseason is set. National Intercollegiate Rugby Association. We'll see 4 teams vie for that top spot. Dartmouth, the returning champs from last year, will take on Quinnipiac, the 4th seed, which I think is pretty much a foregone conclusion in that one. Dartmouth had another great year, undefeated year. Even after losing Emily Henrik and a couple other key players, they still have a few really solid players on that squad. The other game, I think, is the more interesting game. That'll be the 2 seed Harvard versus the 3 seed Army. Army beat Harvard in a very close game recently, I believe a week ago. They kind of ended with a couple of missed kicks, and Army made the one kick to kind of give them the victory. So that should be a very interesting matchup there. But guys, give me your thoughts here on our final 4 teams in NIRA D1. Josh, we can start with you. What are your thoughts on the semifinal matchups, and who do you think comes away with the whole thing when all said and done?
I'm gonna ride the Harvard train on this one. I know, when people think about schools in Boston, they don't usually think about Harvard, obviously for obvious reasons. But I think that they have a great chance, and I'm just gonna roll with them on this one. It's a good matchup, I think, but yeah, I'm a Harvard fan now.
So Harvard over Army and Harvard over Dartmouth, you're saying like they win the entire.
I'm rolling with them. Lock it in. Lock me in. Well, don't make it my locked in pick, but I'm rolling with Harvard, and I'll eat my words next week if I'm wrong.
Rolling with Harvard. Colby, you rolling with Harvard, or who you got in this?
I'm rolling with Harvard as well. I can't roll with Army in any way, shape, or form.
Look at that.
School that I went to, so I gotta roll with Harvard.
Train begin.
Let's go Ivy League. Bring it home.
I couldn't get in, but I can support as a fan.
We're not salty.
I don't know. I like Army actually to beat Harvard in this first match. I might even make this my lock it up, guys, later on. A little foreshadowing in the upset, but I do like Dartmouth to win the entire thing. So I think I'm definitely going to come out on top in this one.
I would pick Dartmouth, but I went on a date with someone that went to Dartmouth. I didn't get a second date, so I can't root for Dartmouth. Dartmouth.
Wow. Okay.
It's in a bad headspace.
Your cutting edge analysis here on College Rugby Wrap Up.
Your first mistake was dating someone from Dartmouth. They seem really weird over there. I don't know what goes on.
Don't come at us, Dartmouth.
Now we've pissed
no. Wait, I was talking about Dartmouth.
Yeah, I know.
Oh,
We've
okay.
angered an entire fan base because we call them weird.
One of the most like historically successful rugby programs in the nation. Rugby alumni all over the rugby world.
They're great. They're amazing. They're extremely fun to watch. Just a little, I don't know what it is.
It's because they have the weird semester setup. Like it's not the 2 semesters. They have the quadmester or some weird like trimester they do.
They're just robotic. They're like robots.
Coach is digging himself an even deeper hole in this one.
We can continue that conversation on Twitter.
Jack Swords, a Holy Cross guy from last year, is at Dartmouth currently playing on that team, so I can't say a bad word about Dartmouth. Not the women's side of things, the men's side, but either way, I think they are very good, and I think the women's team definitely they go for back-to-back here and they win.
All right. Well, that was NIRA, guys, obviously National Intercollegiate Rugby Association. To talk about the NCR women's playoffs, though, we actually have Matt McCarthy, special contributing correspondent here to College Rugby Wrap Up, who sat down for an interview with an NCR official, Angela Smarto. We're going to pass it over to Matt now to take it away.
All right, we are back, and we are back on the College Rugby Wrap Up with Angela Smarto of National Collegiate Rugby, the NCR. Angela, welcome.
Hey, Matt, thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it.
All right, so Angela, we got a lot going on the women's front in NCR, including the road to Houston, right?
Yes, we are starting our pathway to a national championship starting this weekend in several locations, continuing next weekend, and then it'll all end in Houston, Texas on December 3rd and 4th, and we'll have 3 new national champions, and we will be also instituting a bowl matchup as well for the first time on the women's side.
All right, very cool. Some history being made. So you got, as per divisions, you've got small college, D2 and D1. You got stuff happening in each one of those, some news, right? So why don't you fill us in on that?
Sure. We'll start with small college. So small college, we are going to start our pathway to the national championship this weekend. We'll have 4 regional events, and each weekend site will have 4 teams. So we have a full pool of 16 of small colleges from across the country. They'll play Saturday and Sunday into the quarterfinals. If you win twice, then you get to go to Houston and represent your school going for a national championship. So we'll have a East, South, Midwest, and West all competing this weekend with champions crowned on Sunday.
So they're playing 2 games in a weekend, potentially.
Yes.
How many minute halves?
2 full matches.
Ooh, that's a lot of rugby.
Yeah. So teams with the depth tend to advance far in this tournament because you are playing back-to-back days. So teams with larger rosters, like a SUNY Cortland, an Endicott, maybe even a Baldwin Wallace, a Northern Michigan, University of Chicago, you have to have some legs and some fitness to survive the 2-day weekends, which a lot of teams don't do anymore at all. So it's like a brand new experience for them anyway, is playing day 2 rugby. So it is a lot to prepare for physically for these teams, but we should have some really, really exciting matchups on both Saturday and Sunday games from our winners.
All right. So that I kind of interrupted you there, but how about the D2?
Okay. So yeah, each division has a slightly different structure. And we do that because trying to jam everybody into the same thing doesn't always work, because each division and the schools, we have different geography, we have different wants and different needs. So we do our best to try to accommodate all of the divisions and kind of what works best for them. So our Division 2, they are going to play 1 national quarterfinal match this weekend. So we'll have 8 teams playing 4 games. They're all playing on Saturday, the 12th. And if they win, they'll move on to nationals, and they'll play a semifinal and a final while they're at Houston. So we've eliminated that round of 16 for the Division 2.
Copy that. So you've whittled it down, or you've made it a little bit more. I don't want to say easier, because there's nothing easy about getting to Houston through these brackets. It's not playing 2 games in one weekend, though.
Right. They'll have to. Right. So what We did have originally I had a further expanded field, but once you really start to, part of playoffs is that it's hard to get into. We have really good teams not playing this weekend because they didn't win their championship, or, they lost a tight one with whoever is representing their conference. So instead of expanding a field we do have really good teams that aren't going to be there, but playoffs is supposed to be high stakes.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be really competitive and hard to get into. Yeah. So by keeping a small field, well, these quarterfinal matches on Saturday, I'm anticipating to be very competitive. They should be very tight races. I don't really anticipate huge lopsided scores. And that's what we're ultimately trying to avoid in all of our competitions, is how do we get competitive matches in every round of playoffs? That's how we'll measure if our competition is balanced correctly.
Right. You don't want everybody going to the playoffs. I mean, it's a special thing to qualify. So that kind of walks us into, give us the D1 situation.
So Division 1, we do have a round of 8, but we are going to have a play-in. So we'll have 10 teams total. We're going to have 2 matches. We have an East Division and a West Division, and we will have 2 play-ins this weekend, and then they will advance we will have combined, they're going to play along with our men's competition, which starts their official playoff rounds the following weekend, November 18th through the 20th. So we're going to start with 2 play-ins. We had some really competitive at-larges. We also have some teams they're good rugby clubs. So we have like Clemson, for example. They're a good rugby club, but they're a little isolated in the South. So they don't always get enough D1 tests before they advance to playoffs. So to give them a pathway, we've added a play-in match for a number 2 seed, Kent State, Ohio, who also has a strong record. But that way, if Clemson wants in, we need to test them against another Division 1 opponent before they can enter the national quarterfinal round.
That sounds fair. And I'm also looking at your Western regionals. You also have Michigan State versus Iowa State for the right to play Michigan, right?
Right. So we had some both divisions. So the Midwest Conference, where the Iowa State has come from, and Big Ten, which is where Michigan State is, they put in for at-larges and said, we play competitive schedules. We have good rugby clubs. If there's any way to get into playoffs, we want to put in more teams than we're automatically qualified for. So it's too close for me to call and say, I don't really know which one of these teams is better just by looking at paper. So you're going to meet in the middle and you're going to play, and we're going to all find out together. So Iowa State, they had a really, really close game with their conference champion, University of Northern Iowa, early in the season. And that's the game that keeping them out of automatic qualification. But they have grown their roster. They have over 35 girls on their roster. And they are very hungry to get into a playoff experience. Michigan State, they play in a really difficult conference. They're playing Michigan regularly. They've played Iowa. They play really tough teams, and they can come out as an at-large and say hey, we play good rugby and we deserve one more chance to get into the national rounds. So both of those play-in matches on the East and West are happening this weekend on Saturday the 12th. So once those 2 games happen, we'll have our full Division 1 picture, which will begin the next week.
And I'm noticing the state of Iowa is well represented, because you got Northern Iowa. You've got Northern Iowa also playing in the other West Regional against Southern Nazarene.
Yes, Southern Nazarene is a new school-supported program coming out of Oklahoma, and they really shook things up. So we added the Lone Star division to our fall competitions this fall. So that's teams out of Texas and Oklahoma. And they had an undefeated regular season. And they did the new coach there, Eric Gillian. He did a phenomenal job of not only recruiting on campus, but he does have some freshman recruits that are coming just to play rugby. And they have gotten better every single week. And it was great because the way that their season arced is they got to play their best matches at the end against Texas A&M, which has been a playoff competitive team in their history. But they edged them twice. So then they're able to advance as a first-year program, advancing to a national qualifier round in their
Pretty
first
cool
year.
stuff.
And they're really, yeah, they have some young kids who are really good and they're well coached. Their home matches are live streamed. You can go check those out if you want to check out more about their program.
Cool.
But I did watch some of the clips of a lot of their games, and I'm excited to see their system and see if they can shake up some of the names we're used to hearing, your Michigans and UNI and, you know, Clemson and such. So I want to see where they fit in as they continue to climb the ladder.
Right. You've also, I've brought up the fact that the state of Iowa is well represented. You have Iowa playing Colgate in the East as well, right? So you've got Iowa State and Northern Iowa playing in the Western, and then you've got Iowa in the Eastern. And I'm not going to bring up Colgate because they eliminated my University of Buffalo. They relegated, I should say, the men's program, University of Buffalo. So I'm rooting for Iowa in that one.
Well, I'll have to tell their coach, Kathleen. Yeah. So when we were,
sorry,
it's okay. You know, if we call Dave Chapman right now, I think he would be okay with his men's program and their win.
But he's totally fine with it. And he makes it tough for me to root against Colgate because he's a good guy. And
he is. Yeah, he's a great director of rugby up there. But building out the East and West divisions, it's a little bit based on geography, but like I said before, competition balance is really important to me. And it just so happens that we wanted to give an automatic seed to the Big Ten in each division because they have such a strong schedule. We think that was earned to them. But it just kind of panned out that Iowa they were the number 2 seed and we had put them in the East, and that's just how it is. Yeah. And they got on it. Earl and I spoke with their coach and they said, we're committed, we're going. You know, they're like, whatever it takes, like, we're going to make it happen. So once everything was super official for them, I spoke with them, and the way that we did the schedule for the weekend, we tried to accommodate, like giving them the latest start on Friday because they're flying in, and then giving them the earliest start possible to make sure that they don't have to travel. That doesn't have to be a stressor for them for the weekend, hopefully. But they're like, yeah, whatever it takes to go and play, like, they're going to make it happen for them.
That's excellent. That's excellent. All right. So before you go, I want you to give me the 3 best teams in D1.
The 3 best teams in D1. You're really putting me on the spot here.
Yes, that's what we do here on the College Rugby Wrap Up.
I know. Well, I think Notre Dame College is the front runner, and they have been all the season. Once they get into playoffs, they will be playing more difficult rugby. They have been seeking out more varsity school supported programs to give them more challenges, but let's see how they do in more time, more compressed environment.
All right, you have 30 seconds, Angela. Let's rifle through this.
Okay, Notre Dame College is one of them. I won't say if they're 1 or 2 or 3, but Notre Dame College is a top 3. The University of Michigan is a top 3. And I think
this is for the right to play for the new car. Go ahead.
I think my dark horse for the number 3 is I think Southern Nazarene.
Ooh.
It has the speed, has some young speed and talent, and I think it'll be that to me is a game I'm really watching because I'm really curious. In the first round, Southern Nazarene versus University of Northern Iowa. I am friends with both coaches, so I think they can both respect. That's a game I want to know what happens.
You will be until after they see this or hear this.
Well, I want to see what happens in that game. Whoever wins that game is a top 3 team, because I think
you kind of answered and dodged it a little bit. Well done. But Angela, thanks for all the stuff that you're doing for college rugby on the NCR scene and elsewhere. It's great that the game is growing the way it is.
Well, thanks so much for having me. And if you ever want to talk about college women's rugby, you can call me up anytime.
Bingo. On that note, thank you, Angela Smarto, on this special segment of the College Rugby Wrap-Up.
So, guys, games to watch for this weekend. Some really, really exciting matchups, I think. We obviously talked about two of them, guys. I want to hear your thoughts on, you got Navy St. Bonaventure, it's a huge clash in Rugby East, and Ohio State, Indiana in that Big Ten final. Give me your guys' predictions. What are you excited to see in those games? Josh, we started you on that.
So Navy's going to have as great of a performance as they did against Army here in the St. Bonaventure game. I do see Navy coming out with the win, finishing the job and moving to 11-0, which is really impressive for a fall season. And then lastly, for Ohio State, Indiana, which I am going to make my lock of the week. I know we'll talk about this later. I'm taking Indiana over Ohio State in the Big Ten finals. So call it my lock of the week. Got to get back in above 500 in my picks. So really exciting weekend. That's for sure.
Wow, big pick there. Going with the favorite to try and secure that win. I don't know how long we'll do this. We'll figure something out. Maybe we can pick what we'll do. I think we'll supplement our picks with like tournament picks. So we'll see. We'll do brackets, whatever. But that's for down the road. Colby, what are your thoughts there on those two big games, and then any other games you guys can think that people might want to watch on the weekend?
As much as I'd like to go Bonaventure, just because Josh picked Navy. And I, need to catch up here in the standings. I gotta go with Navy. I think if there is one team that's gonna knock them off right now, I think it would be the Bonnies. So I think this is a perfect final that we have. But Navy are just playing the best. I think better rugby right now this year, and are gonna come away with the victory. And then I like Indiana over Ohio State for the Big Ten final.
Yeah, I'll make it unanimous on that. I think Navy just the top team this year. They proved it again and again and again. I like the Bonnies. I like Tui Osborne. I don't think they have enough to win this one. I think they'll definitely make some noise in the NCR playoffs, but I think Navy ends an unbeaten season, 11-0. I like that game, and then I'll take Indiana as well in that Big Ten final. So Colby, give me your lock of the week then. If you're not taking either of those games, did you decide that already, or where are you at on that pick?
I'm taking Navy and Indiana from so my lock it up pick.
Yeah, you could just pick. Yeah, Josh taking Indiana as his. You want to take Navy as yours? That were
Navy's. I'll take Navy as my lock it up pick.
All right.
Bonnies.
Very cool. You guys are going chalk there. I'm going to take Army over Harvard on the women's side with that my upset pick there. I have a little leeway because I'm 4-2 right now, leading the pack, so I'm going to risk a little bit.
Yeah, whatever.
You will rue this day, Zach Lanning.
We'll see. I like what Army offers. I like what they bring to the table in that NIRA division there. So, that was a 4-2 because Holy Cross beat Middlebury a couple weeks ago, who I picked. Josh fell to 3-3 because our last episode with Matt, he picked University of Buffalo to beat Nazareth for you, Josh, and that did not happen. Colby, you are now 2-4. You had Penn State upsetting Army as a couple weeks ago, which did not happen. It was at Navy a couple weeks later who did the deed. So we're all pretty close, though, separated by pretty much a game or two here. So it's anybody's lock it up tournament.
I think I get the tiebreaker if you lose this week, by the way, because Matt picked my pick on Buffalo.
You did have a guest pick, but only because you weren't on two shows. So
that's true.
Should I be punished for that, or you let Matt come on here and
you want a reward for not showing up? Is that what I'm hearing?
I'm not calling it a reward, but would you have picked Buffalo over Nazareth?
No. But
so Colby and I if we don't show up next episode, then and you have to do it on your own, do we then get the tiebreaker?
Exactly.
Maybe.
It's like you tanked for the better pick.
Right. You're tanking for Victor Wembanyama right now in the NBA, Josh. That's what you're doing.
Mm-hmm. I mean, not a bad move if you think about it, but
it's on the spirit of the game, Colby. I'm with you, Colby, on this. Josh is we'll see. We'll talk to the competition committee about it. But anyway, those are our picks. We got our last segment too that you created, Josh, and I've had some fun with. I picked a few games here, but our unofficial, maybe Colby wanted to call it the Mollywop segment here. Colby, is that what you wanted?
That's what. Yeah, that was a option.
I think we'll go with that. We'll go, Mollywop segment. Couple options from this week or a couple weeks ago, and then 2 weeks ago before that. Davenport 118 over New Haven on the women's side of things. That's a pretty big one. Then one of my favorites I've ever seen, I think, happened a couple weeks ago, and that was UNI men's team who beat the University of Illinois Chicago 141-0. Guys, that's something. That is something else.
I'm amazed we've kept this segment going. I'm proud of you for keeping it going in my absence, but we're gonna get some beef on Twitter one day as we're mentioning these games. But
that's the best kind of segment. You got to stir the pot sometimes, and I think I have had fun seeing these on Twitter. I would say it's kudos to the teams for being able to score 140 points every week. I didn't think we'd find one.
That's insane.
I mean, would they have 15 Maggie Burns out there on the field?
Seems like it. Yeah, they must have had some athletes. I mean, that feels personal to me. A lot of these feel really personal. Like, you don't put up 141 points for for somebody you don't care about. Like,
that's subbing in that game. No subbing. It was a side the entire way.
Yeah, that's a beatdown. So I am happy for teams. Again, send us your score if your team really destroyed somebody on a week, put up over 100 points, had the shutout. Send it our way at College RWU or our personal Twitter handles. You can find us out there. And send us anything you got. If your team has a great game, any information, we'd love to chat about it. We love talking all things college rugby. That is all we have for this week, though, guys. I mean, what a jam-packed episode. That's what happens when you miss a couple of weeks. I think you have a lot to talk about. But I had a lot of fun. Hope you guys did too. Any final thoughts here before we wrap things up? Josh, we can start with you.
Well, I got to go and get my level 1 coach certification finally. So, in addition to all this work we want to do outside and covering rugby, you know what? I'm open for hiring. Let me there's I don't have anything else going on, clearly. So bring on the more work. But great time going out there. You learn a lot in those certification courses. So
is it a tough course?
It's actually it's a pretty tough course. It really tests your knowledge of the game. You
metal.
Yeah, but it was fun. I loved it. It was a great time.
Nice. Congratulations.
Yeah, congrats, Josh. Colby, you coach certified? You anything certified?
Not yet. Although I have been considering coaching lately. And not just rugby, but other sports.
Whoa.
Haven't made any moves on it yet. Technically I am a coach with what I do.
That's right, you're a fitness coach.
I've considered it. I have.
Any final thoughts on anything we talked about today?
My only certification is in taking those ankles on the rugby field.
I
think you have to re-up that though, Colby. You may not be certified anymore. I don't know if you still got
you're right. You're right. It's been a few years.
We have to one day just do that combine thing, Colby. We've always talked about it. We'll get on a pitch. You and me, we got to settle this. This beef, the internal beef we have.
It's gonna be like Rocky and Apollo.
Great segment.
I don't think I'm either Rocky or Apollo. I don't even know who I would be in a Rocky movie. Maybe the trainer, like the really old, gnarly trainer. But yeah, we'll get that going. You guys you'll prepare for that. But thanks for tuning in this week. I really appreciate it. We're back. We'll be back throughout the playoffs, throughout the end of the year tournaments, throughout all the winter things, and into the spring, guys. So we are not done by far. We got a lot of college rugby left. It's good. Glad we get both of you on the pod here. It's good to have the whole gang together. Kudos to everybody tuning in. And we will see you next week. Colby, why don't you take us out, man? Why don't you sing us out again?
CRWU is the college rugby wrap up. Hey.